Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our April reading of the Milwaukie Poetry Series. I'm Tom Hogan, the coordinator of the Milwaukie Poetry Series, and thank you all for being here. It's just wonderful from this position to look out and see people in the chairs. So thank you for being here. And I know that there are other things that you could be doing, and you're choosing to spend the evening here with us and hear a wonderful poet, which we're going to do in just a few minutes. I want to welcome those of you, too, who are on the live stream. Thank you very much if you had the opportunity and did log in. So we're glad that you're here. I want to say that if you want to ask questions, because we will have a Q&A after the Michael's reading, if you want to put something in the chat that occurs to you that you'd like to ask, just do that when we come to that portion of the evening. So I'm going to introduce Michael in just a bit, and he's going to read for a time. Then we're going to have a question and answer, as I said, after that. And when Kristen brings the mic around, so please wait for the mic, because we really like to get the question. Well, we've gotten the answer, so Michael will be answering it here in the microphone here, but we'd like to get the question. So please bear that in mind. Also, I want to make you aware of something, maybe you've seen it already, that Michael and I did an interview in preparation for some publicity for this reading. And so it has been out on one of the invitations that Kristen sent out. It's about 14 minutes, and it will be up on the Letting Library YouTube channel, and that should be in the next couple of days. So if you have an opportunity and you'd like to see that in addition to Michael's reading, so please take a look at that. I want to make some thanks, because there's a lot of people to thank. And the city of Milwaukie first for their support throughout the series. We're in our 18th season. We're very happy to be here and happy the support from the city of Milwaukie. And the city of Milwaukie proclaimed April as National Poetry Month. So they did a proclamation for the city of Milwaukie, which was absolutely wonderful. So we're very glad that the mayor and the council did do that. It is April, and it is National Poetry Month, so we are still celebrating. We're celebrating with this reading tonight. So if you had an idea that you wanted to read a poem a day for National Poetry Month and you haven't done it yet, so it's not too late. That's what we always say. It's not too... Well... That's a good question. Yeah, usually, if you could do one, you could certainly do two, and et cetera, because there are so many good poems to read. Thanks to the Letting Library. So we are here in the beautiful library. So great thanks to them for their support. And we've been calling attention to the art. The Milwaukie Arts Committee has gotten some art up, and so now there is an exhibition. And so that's it's lovely to see the color and the paintings on the walls. So thanks to them for doing that. I want to thank the Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee. We do have a committee, and Kristen and I, and my lovely wife Jane is here. So we have a group of people that are working on this. Kristen's going to be coming around after the reading with the mic for the Q&A. So let's give the committee a hand. Can we do that? Thank you very much. And finally, thanks to Willamette Falls Media and Corey. Corey is our technician tonight, so he does a great job. Thank you for being here. He's the one that is making the live stream and the sound and everything go. So let's give Corey a hand, too. Thank you. A couple of things I want to say. Please silence your phones, beepers, telephonic devices. That would be great. And I want to call your attention to the contest. There is a writing contest that the Clackamas Literary Committee is sponsoring. It's running this month. It's for people who work in or live in Clackamas County. And so there is a flyer online. And if anyone would like me to send you one, because I don't have my flyers with me to hand you a hard copy, but I'd be happy to do that. But you could look on Clackamas Arts Alliance, and you could find it online. It is the writing contest. There is a prize. It's a $250 first prize, and there's $200 honorable mentions. So if that's something that you're interested in and want to submit, please do that. Finally, a couple of events coming up. In May, it starts First Friday. First Friday starts at the beginning of summer. First Fridays run May through October. It's really something to be already talking about summer. So we do that with in conjunction with the St. John the Evangelist Church. So the reading is going to be there. The readers in May will be the parishioners from St. John the Evangelist. Then the readers in June are going to be the winners of the contest. So we were able to have an opportunity to have the contest winners be the featured readers. So that's going to be the case, and they will be the featured readers in June. Richard Robbins is going to be our poet in May, so he will be here second Wednesday of the month. And here it is. Good, I got assistance. We talk about teamwork. So that was teamwork. I'm very happy to introduce our poet tonight. I've been looking forward very much to his reading. Michael was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. A graduate of Stanford University, he completed an MA at the University of Virginia and a PhD at the University of Oregon with a dissertation on ecological views of landscape in American literature. He taught literature and writing at Portland Community College for 35 years, particularly courses in nature and landscape writing, Native American literatures, eco-cosmocomposition, and editing and published. He has published 2 books of poetry, The 100-Year House and Gnarl Ridge. They're both available for sale over there. For 20 years with Bill Siverly, he co-edited Windfall, a journal of poetry of place, which featured poetry of the Pacific Northwest. He also edited the newsletter of Trail Keepers of Oregon. His prose about nature and landscape writing has appeared in the anthologies The Eco-Criticism Reader, Reading the Earth, and 50 Key Thinkers on the Environment. Wow, what a resume. Thank you for everything that you've done, Michael. Would you join me in welcoming our poet this evening, Michael McDowell?
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Letting Library, and thank you to the Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee for inviting me, and thanks to all of you for coming. I'll be reading poems from my most recent book, Gnarl Ridge, and then 1 or 2 poems from The 100-Year House, my first book, and then some more recent poems. Gnarl Ridge is mainly a book about walking, both urban walking and mountain walking, and backpacking as well. Mountain hiking, really, I make the distinction. Most of those poems are set in the Cascades of Oregon and a few other places for the mountain poems, and then for the walking urban poems, they're set mostly in the Portland area. So I'm going to start with a mountain hiking poem. It's called Ultralight Backpackers. Ultralight backpackers try to pack as little as possible in their packs, which I do too when I go backpacking, but not as thoroughly as this, so it's fun to poke fun. They brag like 6-year-olds. My base weight is lighter than yours. It's no longer just sawn off toothbrush handles and margins cut off topo maps. Now it's a single titanium pot to boil water for a freeze-dried meal eaten from the bag with a titanium spork. Still hungry? Drink some olive oil. Goodbye, white gas and Optimus cook stove with your brassy good looks and fiery roar. Denatured alcohol in a soda can bottom now quietly heats the water to rehydrate the food. 5 squares of toilet paper a day. Who needs more? Flashlights stay home. Hands-free headlamps the size of horse chestnuts grow from foreheads to create all the necessary glow. Ditch the tent. A tarp's all you need. And the mosquitoes? Sleep with a head net on. Wear earplugs so you don't hear them. Camp on ridge's windward side. The ultralights breeze past on the trail, swift as trail runners, as we plod onward, weighted with what's needed for the wind, rain, impalings, burns, and fractures my daughter and I might suffer. Instead of water bottles, they carry plastic bladders which can curl into the size of a cigar with the weight of a butterfly. They flutter past into a carefree dream of eternal sunshine, warm breezes, and soft starlit nights. I have a lot of field guides on the shelves at home, but I use iNaturalist and Seek apps on my phone to identify species while I am out. They're not always accurate, but they have been a terrific help. So this is called Seeking IDs Beneath the Trees. We wannabe botanists amble along Woods Creek, pointing magic wand phones at plants and trees so an app can tell us what we see. Of course we know what we see. We've known since childhood these dandelions, blackberries, and fringe cups. But wait, it's not dandelion, but nipplewort, Lapsana communis, a long, thin stem delivering nursing mothers a soothing balm. That's trailing blackberry with its stem like a string, ready to wrap incautious ankles or wrists. Berries so loved by bears, it's Rubus ursinus. And now I've confused fringe cup with youth on age, Tolmia menzizi, daughter plants piggybacked on the older stem to produce a vertical lineage. In the half shadows of the late spring woods, we traipse like truffle hunters with eyes on the ground till our seek and find app tells us what we've found. This poem is on a broadsheet that you may have picked up. There are more of them on the table there. It's called The New Burnt Forest. We all know that wildfires have become more frequent and more intense as climate change progresses. This poem describes some of the results. One term may need a gloss. That's CMYK, which is a printing term for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, the 4 process colors that are used to produce color book pages, in books and magazines. This is the New Burnt Forest, Cascade Creek Burn, Mount Adams Wilderness. The fire took place in September and October of 2012, and the poem was written shortly after, so I don't know what it looks like now, but this is the description within a year of a fire. The burnt forest says monochrome. No more Kodachrome and CMYK. A new climate calls for a new look. Goodbye, hushed cathedral of trees. Stained glass window light shafts through the needles, quiet prayer of footfall on duff. Our fossil fuel ways change the forest look with fires that burn hotter, faster, farther, remaking forests in our own image. Bristly green mountain hemlocks and firs once waved green boughs frothy with needles. They now stand in smooth black flared gowns. Their thin black-clad arms point sun-silvered fingers at each passerby. Here and there, trees in deshabille, their blackened bark loose and falling off, cluster in conversation groups. They say to us, "Here's your new forest, liposuctioned, belly-tucked, snags and stumps on a forest floor of ash." For miles of burnt landscape, we can see Mount Adams summit through the vertical black snags as through the bars of a jail cell in which we have put ourselves. The next poem has one term in it that may need a gloss. Terpenes are substances that trees give off, creating the smell of a forest. Coniferous trees, especially on a hot summer day, give off really strong smells. The poem is a response to a student that I was talking about hiking with in a conversation. What do the woods do to you? You don't hunt? You don't fish? You don't ATV? What do you do when you go into the woods? An 18-year-old student. Better to ask, once in the woods, what happens to you? What do the woods do to you? Terpenes of hemlock, noble fir, or cedar on a hot day send smells that lift your head off your shoulders. Heady wind across a hillside of sage inebriates as surely as a cloud of poppy smoke. The trail at every step threatens to trip with rocks and roots, rubble and mudslicks, fallen branches, twigs, and sticks to make you pay attention to the tread. Woods shower you with a show of power, the snapped trunks of thick trees, a gust of wind as you round a rock face, the push off balance of a glacial melt stream. Certain terrain raises hairs along neck and arms, cross a scree of vision quest pits crusted with lichens and algae, and you feel the presence of flowing energies. Woods shake you free of everyday comfort. Rocks enter shoes, cold shivers your spine, branches scratch arms, burrs attach to socks, sunscreen sweat stings eyes. Evidence of death forces contemplation. Ghostly trunks of dead white bark pine, the rib cage of deer, scattered feathers and beak of bird, an owl's vomit of fur, bones, and teeth of a mouse. Stand still. A varied thrush sounds a single note. A strand of spider silk undulates in the breeze. A creek burbles. The woods empty your mind of everything but this wild world. Our family, and me in particular, I have been very grateful for all of the volunteers who work on trail building and trail maintenance, which especially is important now as the Forest Service, over the last 20 years, has lost almost all their employees who maintain trails, and now with immense cuts both to the Forest Service personnel and to the grants that support the volunteers, it's even more important to work on trails. So this is called restoration. It's an urban trail, though. Woods Memorial Natural Area. On a July afternoon, so hot the rhododendron leaves curl and our tomato plants and dahlias droop, I take the puppy over the hill to walk cool, shaded trails along ravines of firs and cedars, maples and alders. Nessie sniffs right and left, stops to interrogate a clump of sword fern, paw a fallen cone, chew a branch of Nootka rose, snuffle a carpet of buttercups. We can hear I-5 over a ridge exhaling its continual sigh. In the heat of the day hush, a single bird calls, then quiets. Beneath the green canopy, behind a wall of salmonberry, Woods Creek quietly gurgles over its rocks. Long ago, I brought my children here when a slimy creek slid around old tires and bumped against chunks of concrete and crumbled bank, which clogged its raw orange clay throat. We dodged clawing arms of blackberry, climbed over roots of upended trees, skirted seeps and sodden trail, and leaped the creek. English ivy smothered trees and slopes. After 20 years of activism, grants, and volunteers, now thimbleberry, Oregon grape, and foam flower cloak the slopes. Salmonberry and Indian plum hold the stream's banks and cool its riffling waters. The puppy pauses on a crib wall high above the creek, then bounds along a boardwalk, peers through cedar fence rails. We stop on each footbridge for the damp air of creek bottom to wash over us, welcome as an ocean breeze. And a childhood poem. One of the problems that Robert Michael Pyle and others have pointed out is that children today don't really have unlandscaped areas where they can go and wreak havoc on trees and plants and things, where all children are supposed to only look. And if you're not engaged actively, there's something missing from a child's education. So this is my childhood. Whacking brackens, Pteridium aquilinum, brackens. They grew as tall as our 8-year-old bodies, filling the small clearing bordered by maple saplings. For Townie and me, they became pirates, cattle rustlers, bank robbers, grizzly bears. We strode among the bracken ferns, arms swinging, our stick swords singing. Whack, whack, their spindly spines crumpled, and fronds flew right and left. They always returned the next year, more numerous and glorious and tall. More attacks, more whacks, more dead, demoted from understory to ground cover. Hillside woods between our houses gave us a world to lop, carve, sculpt, reconfigure, trees to climb, trails to run, dirt to dig, bugs to collect, seasonal creek to dam. Lucky the kid able to whittle a childhood from nearby woods of decaying logs, scrappy weeds, rocky slopes, vacant lots, ditches, left alone landscapes. I like long hair. I'm sorry that it's no longer standard for men to wear their hair long and be able to tie it back with ribbons. I always like to see how long hair flows like water. So this is called waterfall hair for Janice, my spouse, who is out of town this week, unable to be here. I like the way long hair flows, as when ocean waves crash on fishing rocks. Strands of water glide every possible channel through basalt back to seething surf. 30 years ago, your newly shampooed hair cascaded around your delicate ears and neck, down your back as you rinsed, astounding and mesmerizing me, as did water rolling a foot thick over the lip of a gorge falls in a thundering soft curve of 1,000 gleaming strands. Now, months into the pandemic, barber shops closed, hair salons closed. Everyone's hair grows and grows. we see Albert Einstein uncombable, radiating hair. 18th century cues held not by ribbons, but scrunchies. Self-inflicted 1980s mullets. Your mane has returned as well, streaming in wind, shiny in sunlight, a sensory delight. So this poem was a challenge to not depend totally on the sense of sight on a walk. It's called Night Walks. After watching sunset from the top of Half Dome, we descended to our Yosemite campsite in darkness. I learned then how much better to leave headlamp off and intuit tree branch, trail rock, bend in the path. Years later, living in a borrowed cabin in the woods, I followed bleached branches outlining the path to my door. Even on moonless, starless nights, they glowed faintly to guide my muddy feet home. Tonight, I walk my neighborhood after traffic has settled, and the freeway hums softly like a refrigerator in a quiet house. Colors have fled, and small sounds magnify: a rustle of alder leaves, gurgle of creek, click of bats. A scent of unseen gardenias rolls down the hillside above, and a mild wind from the southwest brushes my arm, telling me to look up where scattered clouds are turning the night sky into gray-blue marble. And a poem from The 100-Year House. Family stories are important, whether they're totally accurate or not. They create an invisible landscape that those who have heard the story superimpose upon the more factual sensory landscape and making the whole world richer. This is called Walking the Sky for my grandmother, May Robertson McCracken. In 1917, my grandmother rode into the sky while walking the lift span of the Hawthorne Bridge. The Willamette River dropped away from under her. The wind whipped her dress around her legs, and she rose to join the gulls circling overhead. The only pedestrian on the bridge, saving streetcar fare by walking downtown, she smiled and waved at the bridge tender above her. She waved to her children safe at Buckman's school. She waved to her husband at work downtown. The pulleys turned, and 1,700,000 pounds of weight sank below her. As she stood between the two towers high above Portland, a ship passed under her, loaded maybe with wheat or logs, and in a few minutes she had descended to a common level. We call it the day my grandmother walked the sky. And then some newer poems. This is Fogland with an epigram, que sais-je, meaning, what do I know? Landscapes can teach us how to behave, usually by causing us trouble, making us have to think. This poem is set on the headlands of Cape Disappointment, the mouth of the Columbia River. And in this instance, the lesson may be something useful in this time of misinformation and political division. Fogland. The fog hovers over the coast, a giant hand, palm downward. Gray fingers descend over the headland, comb through spruce and pines. Gray seas merge into gray sky, the horizon line anyone's guess. The day a timeless gloaming, colors dimmed, shapes indistinct. I hear but don't see muffled waves battering basalt below. Sense, but don't see trees, shrubs, and rocks. Forms appear and dissolve in the gray. As I slip on mud and stumble over logs, I feel grateful to fog, an antidote to certainty, a caution to be less confident of what we see. During the height of the pandemic, my siblings and I did regular Zoom meetings to see each other's faces, and especially because our oldest brother was dying of cancer from exposure to Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. This is called New Year's Eve 2020. A holiday Zoom happy hour. A half dozen siblings, holiday drinks all around. Quarantined across 3 time zones, we all need the cheer of one another's smile. What'll it be? Not the standards, not just gin and tonic or scotch on the rocks. We're talking pull out the stops, this last drink of a pandemic year, to toast our brother, now dying of cancers from his long ago year at Ton Son Nu, where planes shed Agent Orange like liquid confetti. He's just received $100,000 the VA sent, with apologies for the delay. And oh, thanks for your service. That calls for something bright and cheery. A red poinsettia cocktail with the sweet taste of orange liqueur, or a pomegranate martini, its taste of an underworld fruit balanced by the aquaviti of vodka. Better yet, a candy cane mimosa to match the sugar-coated stories of painless victory that lead us to war. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer 3 years ago. A few weeks after I had surgery to remove my prostate, I was lying in bed falling asleep, and I thought I heard all of my different internal organs, which had been taken out and put back in, talking to each other about their recent experiences and how things are now. So I actually did grab a piece of paper from the drawer in my nightstand and wrote the first draft of this. The prostate, for those who haven't had prostate cancer or problems with it to know about it, is part of the male reproductive system. It's the size of a walnut, and the urethra carries urine straight through it, and also semen. And its function, the prostate's function, is to make the fluid that transports sperm. So this is called the abdominal organs gossip after the radical prostatectomy. Hey, it's just not the same with the prostate gone, the penis said to the intestines. We were good friends. We had good times together. The colon piped up. I kind of like it. More room. He always crowded things. It was getting worse every year. And such a braggart, said the appendix, always boasting about how his semen could repopulate the entire world, as if he'd ever have such a chance. Yeah, said the liver, he was so loud we could hear him way up here. And his stories were always so lewd. With him, everything was sex, sex, sex. I'm glad the garbage mouth is gone. That's not the worst of it, said the urethra. He was practically strangulating me. Years ago, I could send out a stream like Niagara, but lately, he's pressed me so hard, I've had to work 3 times as long just to pee a measly little stream. Good riddance. And those tumors, said a lymph node, nasty friends he invited to live with him. Did you ever hear them whispering among themselves? I could hear them talking all night. They weren't planning to stay put. Those no-goods wanted to sneak out and attack each of us. They'd wreak havoc everywhere they could. I don't know, said the bladder. I'm not totally happy the prostate's gone. I lost my sphincters when he left. And now I dribble all day. I'm just not myself anymore. There, said the pancreas. It'll get better. Just wait, you'll see. We're all better off without him and his friends. I ran across the abbreviation EDC and had no idea what it meant. And when I looked it up, a whole world of preparation for the apocalypse or for every kind of disaster opened up to me. So this is called EDC, Everyday Carry. For some people, EDC means a Glock 48. But for me, it's a Waterman Expert with brass barrel holding a milliliter of Noodler bulletproof ink. To my son, everyday carry means a pocket knife, a French laguiole with thumb-studded blade. I prefer a little Swiss Army knife with toothpick, tweezers, and scissors. EDC also means the wallet, keyring, and cell phone, which open doors for us throughout the day. Though our heads carry the more important keys, the passwords for living an everyday life. Some everyday carry pockets bulge with multi-tool, notebook, flashlight, compass, and Bic lighter, ready for power failure, earthquake, hurricane, tsunami, terrorist attack, military airstrike. My everyday incontinence pad in back pocket, necessary since I everyday carried cancer, reminds that, like everyone, before long, I must re-enter the darkness that rounds our life with no EDC. This poem is about losing the coffee mug I used every morning when I was washing it, and it was too slippery. I've added one phrase, which maybe you'll be able to pick out to bring it up to date. Goodbye, favorite coffee mug. Goodbye, snow-capped mountains, geese in flight, conifers rising through fog, you who day after day silently contained my fresh-brewed French roast. All I did was scour the soapy insides, and the cup popped apart, shards flying. Goodbye, coffee mug of 1,000 mornings, gift of my daughter many years ago. A severed bird's head flew to the counter. A snowfield separated from the mountain. Trees fell jackstraw jumbled into the sink onto pieces of sky and fog. Hello, new cut on my knuckles where broken ceramic gouged a path. Perhaps a scar will help me recall snowy mountains, foggy spruce, and flying geese, while I sip my coffee in plain ceramic and ponder morning's news of glaciers melting, ice breaking up, drought-stressed trees on fire, federal workers fired, how quickly things fall apart. And here is another topical poem, not intended to be topical, except for its dedication to our new Secretary of Health and Human Services. Salk polio vaccine, Ainsworth's grade school, 1956. Take one, the smiling teacher said. She held out a tray of little cupcake papers. In the middle of each, a sparkling sugar cube. My mother nodded okay. How wonderful to be told to eat a sugar cube. No need to sneak into our dining room to filch it from the silver service on the tea cart. No frowns. A cube of sugar makes the medicine go down. 20 million school children learned. We knew thousands of other kids found no sweetness in leg braces, crutches, and iron lungs. We have an old pendulum clock on our mantle in our living room now that my great-grandfather bought in Iowa in 1863. It's about 2 feet tall, 1.5 feet wide. It's called an OG clock. They were inexpensive in the 1800s. They started becoming popular in the 1820s and kind of faded in popularity in the 1920s. OG comes from the voûte d'ogive, Gothic arches in cathedrals, and in English it's kind of, the O-G-I-V-E became O-G-E-E, or OG is what you find on the internet when you look up about the clocks. And they're called that because the one characteristic of all of them that's instantly visible is that on the case, the molding is carved in an S shape, which is like the arch of a, well, theoretically like the arch of a Gothic cathedral. So this is sort of a social critique. OG clock repair. Gary, the clock guy, says it's the butterfly, a flat piece of brass hinged on top of the clockworks. It had gotten loose and was spinning its wings too fast. He would tighten it down. Maybe that's what we need, someone to tighten down the butterflies of the world, at least those talking and pushing and moving too fast as they flit about on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X. They alight on roses and manure with equal enthusiasm, suggesting to buy this, think that, dance like me, act now before symptoms get worse, our partner leaves, stock sells out, the country goes to hell. With the butterfly loose, the clock blasted out the hour like a machine gun fusillade with a burst of noise, clang, 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 in 2 seconds. No breath, no eye blink, no thought, no pause between. Home from the clock guy, the clock again strikes the hour in meditative gongs, and I hear the minutes of my life as they tick by. At least one tightened down butterfly behaving. Okay, well, thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Michael. That was wonderful. So we'll see what questions people may have and give some thought to your questions. I'll start it out, and I'll ask Michael, you're writing about some of the areas that I've hiked, and do you have favorites? Places to go?
Indeed, I do. I take a dog walk every day. I usually walk around 3-4 miles every day, and the easiest places to get to are Dickinson Park and Woods Memorial Park, both of which have natural areas. Well, it's actually now Woods Memorial Natural Area. And then on Mount Hood, one of my most favorite hikes is going up Gnarl Ridge, which is why it became the title of this book. And after I had around 50 poems about hiking, I realized I'd never written a poem about Gnarl Ridge. And so in order to have the title on the cover, I realized I'd better write a poem about Gnarl Ridge, which is probably the last poem that got written for the book. Other questions? Okay.
Hi. I cried when you started talking about your brother with cancer. I have a brother. He has terminal lung cancer, and he has a little girl. And he's having a really hard time. I just need some advice.
Talk about anything. Don't compare. There's a book by one of our Portland authors, whose name escapes me, but is the best book I've ever read on how to work with somebody who's dying. And every chapter is filled with suggestions and examples. The woman who wrote it was a nurse who dealt with people in the last stages of life and has dealt with hundreds and hundreds of families having to figure out what to do, what not to say. What not to say is probably the most important thing. But mainly it's just being there and not even talking, just being there.
Okay. Thank you.
Go up front first.
Michael, I may have been starting backpacking about the time you did. We're at the same age.
Uh-huh.
I blew my knees out soon enough. So my last backpack trip was in the year 2000, before there was cell phone service in the mountains. And I would ask you to compare the experience between hiking with a live cell phone and hiking without it.
Well, most of the places I hike don't have cell phone service. Yeah, and so I don't use iNaturalist anymore because every time I would use it, take a picture and ask what it was, it said, there's no service. And so I never got an answer. Seek, which iNaturalist developed for children, is totally self-contained in the phone. And so it works. And probably I have saved hours hiking because I go exploring off trail a little bit, and I have realized that I'm 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from where I thought I was. And in mountains, that's a lot of time to get back, especially if you're supposed to be home by dinner. And the GPS, I use Gaia GPS, which uses 3 satellites to pinpoint where you are, and it works with no cell service because it's using satellites, and it has been absolutely wonderful. So those are the only 2 things I use a cell phone for while I'm hiking, and they're both, one teaches me and the other one keeps me safe and home on time.
No more getting lost.
I don't call it getting lost. It's just exploring.
Good point.
So thank you for the humor in your diagnosis of cancer. That was really listening to you out. So, but anyway, I'm Jurian, and we're grateful to be watching you as a miracle. I know God spared you for us to enjoy. We appreciate that. In addition, I always wondered how, with the homelessness around here, how y'all get by with just that one backpack. I'm spoiled. That's just like, I don't get it. So thanks for explaining that. And we're grateful you're here. I had my brother and my best friend, his best friend, diagnosed with prostate cancer, and they too had to go through what you did. It's not pleasant. We're grateful you're here. And again, thank you for the humor.
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm a backpacker. This is the best poetry reading I've heard in forever. The last time I went backpacking, I was by myself and broke my ankle. So I used my cell phone. Once every 2 hours, I dialed 911, nothing. And then at 6:30 at night, after my rescuers had arrived, they said, "Are you the injured hiker?" So a rumor got out, I guess. But I'm grateful that I got found, and I haven't done much backpacking since, but I'm not allowed to go by myself anymore. So did you do a lot by yourself?
I have never gone backpacking by myself.
I did a
I've gone
lot.
backpacking with a lot of people, but for the last 20 plus years with nobody but close family members, my spouse, my son, my daughter. Hiking is another matter. Most of my hikes are by myself. I have a hiking partner, and about every third hike I go on, we go together. And he's a walking encyclopedia of natural phenomenon, so I always learn a lot with him. But he also takes a lot of risks, and so my wife is always she's really glad I'm hiking with someone, but he leads you into places you probably shouldn't be going.
Right.
So it's a toss-up, which is better.
Thanks. My mother was a naturalist, and the last time I went backpacking with a man who is now my husband for 52 years, but he was going to bring another couple with them, and they didn't come. And my mother said, well, he probably doesn't want to go with you alone. And so she went backpacking too. She was 65.
Wow.
I recommend the Willamette if you haven't been there.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, have you been in any other countries where you have explored the forests or mountains or natural areas? And if so, maybe some comparisons?
Actually, I have never gone on really adventurous hikes in other countries. Mainly because, well, for a number of reasons. Money is one of them. Another is being able to get to the areas, because I don't drive in foreign countries. So, no. There's one poem in Gnarl Ridge set in Reykjavik in Iceland, on the outskirts of the city. Well, that's about the closest in my poetry anyway of foreign walking. So, yeah.
How did you develop your style of writing? Like your voice? It's very unique.
Huh. Well, hopefully, partly, as far as the humor goes, it's because it's what gets us through life, which is I belong to a couple of writing groups. My poetry writing group got very tired of all the poems I was writing about internal organs and health and things that can happen and surgeries. And so I kind of backed off on that. But I taught creative writing poetry for many years, and some of my students were far better poets than I'll ever be, and my students taught me an awful lot, gave me a lot of different examples of things to do, and then wide writing. My writing group is teaching me most right now, and so if I have a style, it's constantly changing. It's constantly in flux. I'm trying out new things as I learn.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
Sometimes being funny in person is not the same as like being funny in writing. I am not funny when I write. There's just no way that it's happening. So I'm wondering, did that come out naturally for you, or were you kind of like, I'm pretty funny. People laugh when I talk. I'm going to try it in writing. And were you successful right away? How long did it take to
Well,
master?
actually, I'm not really funny.
I beg to differ.
Okay. Yeah, I.
Twist. I'm done.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Yes. My first poetry teacher was when I was 22. I was spending the summer in New York City, and the friend I was spending the summer with was a film student at Columbia University. And so I took the only creative writing class at Columbia University that was offered that summer, a graduate level class, because I had written fiction as an undergraduate, and it was taught by a 27-year-old who had already published 3 books, and who was brilliant. He was also a concert violinist. And he taught us nothing but poetry. And he would start every class reciting from memory a long poem, and then he would assign the book, a book by that poet for that week. There was no reading list before the class started. Just the first day of the week, he would start reciting and then say, buy that book. Go find a bookstore and buy that book, and we'll talk about that poet the rest of the week. And he was brilliant, and he was kind of a surrealist, and that's where I began to really like wild metaphors. And I have tempered that somewhat because I realize now that surrealism doesn't work when nobody knows what you're talking about. And so it has to be factually clear, but I will put in all kinds. I like playing with language, so put in odd metaphors. Thanks.
At what age did you develop your love of words? You mentioned 22, but as a child, you talked about being outside, and I loved that poem, by the way, and the play that children used to have, or we had, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you realize that you just loved words?
Well, actually, as I'm getting older, I'm trying to get rid of a lot of the stuff I have. And 2 weeks ago, I ran across little notebooks that I wrote when I was 12 and 13, 3 little notebooks. And they were just filled with all kinds of things that I had copied down from different people, different places. And so they weren't very good. I scanned a few pages and shredded the rest. And then when I was about, when I was about that age, I put together my first book, and I sewed it together, typing paper, and wrote stuff in it. But I started college as a journalism major because I simply liked to write. I could write fast, and I went into you wrote for the daily student newspaper, and so I would go in around 4 o'clock every afternoon when their reporters had not delivered their stories yet, and was told to get on the phone, call this person, and put together a story. And I'd have 45 minutes to do it in, and I would do it. And so I ended up being published without a byline day after day, and I loved doing that. And then every time I read the stories, I hated them because I'd written them so fast. If I just had more time between drafts, I could have made it good writing. And so I dropped out. I changed from journalism to English because I wanted to spend more time on writing. I wanted it to be good. I didn't want just to have written and published. Yeah, they did.
My question was when he was in elementary school or in middle school, did he have a teacher that recognized his love of writing or that pointed out to him that he had a talent?
One of the poems I am writing right now is about holy cards because I went to Catholic grade school, and we got rewarded with butterscotch hard candies, but what we really wanted were those holy cards, which were like baseball cards only with saints on them. And if you wrote really good stuff, you got a holy card. And so I collected a lot of holy cards, and that's kind of what told me. Learned a lot about different saints.
Where did you go to grade school?
St. Thomas More Grade School.
One more question, and then Michael is going to end with a poem.
Sure.
We got one more over here.
As you're hiking, do you write down what you're experiencing as you're walking, or do you wait until you get home and sit down and write?
A good question. I carry a little notebook with me everywhere I go and a pen. But when I'm hiking, I take a sheet of yellow legal paper and fold it over and put it in my front pocket and take notes on it, which are almost illegible if I don't recopy them the same day or the next day and then develop them. My hiking partner, on the other hand, can walk while he's writing. And I don't know how he does it, but he's constantly writing. I have to stop every time. And so I can get everything on one sheet of paper for a 6 or 7 hour hike, but that's my practice. For my birthday this year, my daughter gave me little notebooks that are waterproof. It's waterproof paper. You can't write in ink on them. You have to write with a pencil, but it's because it's raining all the time, and I take notes. It's Oregon, yeah. Okay, a last poem. Let's see. Well, this is an old one, but I like it. It's on the theme of the last few poems I read. It's set before Metro started handing out countertop compost bins to put your kitchen scraps in. We had a worm bin in our carport with trays that we put worms into and we put the scraps into. So this is a description of that. Worms. Every Sunday, I empty our kitchen compost into the worm bin. White cores of apples and pears mound atop green bean ends. Potato peelings lean against cantaloupe rinds and celery stalks. I arrange the potent mixture so the lid will fit. The next week, all that color has fled. The bumps and angles flattened over a smooth field of black castings for our garden. Hundreds of red wigglers crawl over one another, tasting the week's food again and again. Worms, my father would say, pouring gravy on his potatoes. In a grave, worms eat through your intestines, your eyeballs. They crawl out your lips. He'd shake his head. And bugs everywhere, crawling and biting. For years, he paid $90 a month to buy a concrete crypt high off the floor in the Garden of the Apostles mausoleum, marble-faced on a hilltop above the city, sunlight slanting through the aisles. After embalming fluid replaced his blood, and he lay in a blue cloth particle board casket, I placed my hand on his forehead, as impenetrably cold and hard as the marble mausoleum walls. 16 years later, on a chill November day, we reopened his crypt to roll in our mother. His casket lay still in the silent shadows, its pale blue cloth intact, not a worm or bug in sight. the cemetery workers recaulked and bolted the crypt closed. We went home to our everyday lives and told our children, bury us unembalmed and underground. We have worms to feed and gardens to grow. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Michael. So there are books over here for sale, and there are some refreshments. Please help yourself. That's what they're for. If you want to take some with you, that's fine. Richard Robbins is going to be here in a month, so we'll see you then. Thank you all for being here.